And what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players, an MLS podcast. On this week's MLS news, we've got a ton to cover. USL, they're pushing hard for their stadium upgrades as their D1 sanctioning proposal creeps up ever closer. Evander returns to Portland to a rain of cuss-filled chants and boos, and Mascherano basically acknowledges that he's willingly breaking the rules and is just asking for forgiveness instead of owning up to it. I'm Andrew, that's Connor, and we're going to cover all that and more on this week's MLS News episode. Connor, what a week, man. What a week. There's so much to cover. Which story are you most looking forward to chatting about today?
The Mascherano one. I think that might be the easy answer there, but I think that's a fun one.
Oh, dude, like I wouldn't doubt like when we do our end of the season, like most memorable moments tier list, that's going on there for sure. That's insanity.
I love it though.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like I said, it's that's lore right there. That's going in 5 years. We're talking about that on MLS history, no doubt.
I don't know if I go that far.
Hater. That's what you are. What I do want to know is what are you rocking on your neck for scarf of the week?
I got Portland. Big Portland day. This is the wrong side. There's nothing on this side.
Yeah, I
Portland
like that one.
Timbers with a nice little confetti design.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one. You need to get new ones, but I like that one. We're talking USL. Talking USL, so I'll never have I don't get an excuse to bring this one out often, but good old Lexington SC, my boys back, I guess technically north of me now, but down south for you, right in the middle of us, is going to be a topic of conversation as we go into it. But before we do that, I do want to make sure that we are promoting the social media. We have been doing really, really well on social media lately. So make sure you're following us to come and get a part of it, right? So we are at 880 followers on Twitter, pushing for that 1K, which would be super crazy. Over on YouTube, we still are banging out the content. We are looking at 843, also looking to get to 1,000. And we're doing weekly posts over there, text posts with polls to get some voting done for our question of the week. So be a part of that as well. And then on all the other socials, Instagram and TikTok, those aren't really bumping as much, but they are fun to post on. So make sure you be a part of that as well. All righty. We'll save the most exciting one for last. Let's start with the USL. These guys, they're very, very clearly pushing for this D1 sanctioning, right? And we spoke about this way back when they first floated the idea. They want to do Pro Rel, they want to do Division One, they want to do all this sort of stuff, and there are tons of hurdles to get through, but the biggest of them all were stadium size and location. In recent weeks, it is evident that USL has taken that problem head on. It was recently announced that Pittsburgh Riverhounds is expanding their stadium to hit the requirements dead on at 15,000. First of all, beautiful stadium. I was there, visited that stadium before. It already looked great. To have a two-tier system there is going to look awesome. They're going to join Detroit and Sacramento in their expansion efforts, while USL Louisville or Louisville, depending on who you ask, Birmingham and Miami are already at capacity according to Transfer Market. We mentioned all these little things about USL doing to put pressure on MLS with their stadium building and their expansion efforts and all this sort of stuff. Do you think that this is now going to move the needle for them in terms of their level of worry? I think is the way I'm going to put that.
I do not think it moves the needle at all, to be honest. And that's not to say that this isn't good. I mean, this is good for the sport in general, but Major League Soccer just has way more money involved in it in academies and stadiums and bringing in players and just has more reputation and pull than USL does. And that's not to say like, oh, Major League Soccer has so much pull. Like, look, they have Lionel Messi in their league. I understand that they don't have like the pull that a lot of European leagues have, but if we're talking Major League Soccer versus USL, I think there's a significant gap. Like there's no universe where Messi goes to a USL team. You could offer him stake in every single team in the league. He's not going to USL. So I don't think them getting stadiums up to D1 level is putting the pressure on Major League Soccer, but it is good in general just for the sport in this country because the more options you have, the more development you can get and maybe it's like good opportunities for people who can't afford to go into Major League Soccer academies if they're not like getting the opportunities.
Yeah, I agree with you here. I think that when this was announced and MLS called their board meeting and said, okay, this is going to happen. We need to prepare for it. Obviously, they knew this was coming because they had to. There was no way that they were going to get their sanctioning without the stadium getting bigger, right? So I don't think it moves that needle in terms of worry because they knew it was coming. And also, stadium sizes don't mean that just more people are magically going to come in and be a part of the community, right? So again, I look at Lexington, who started playing at a like college field and then built their own very beautiful stadium. And outside of games against Louisville, maybe 1,000 people are showing up, which again is not to say that they aren't doing things the right way. They've got a great youth system. The it's in a good part of town. Like all of this is there. It's just it's not drawing people, and it's not because of the stadium. It's because of the level of the play. They're a mid-level USL Championship side, right? They're not the top of the top. They're not the best of the best. Cool. But the stadiums are good for a global focus. You mentioned it. It's not a bad thing that this is happening, right? You need to be able to have more places to play if you want to have that draw for other people. But the other reason I'm not super worried about it is even if they want to make ProRel happen, it's not that they need 12 teams at 15,000, stand stadiums to do it. If they want to make ProRel happen, they need another one, two, three, however many teams are going to promote up, have to have that stadium too. So it's not just 12, they got to get farther from that, right? There's one other thing I want to mention, and it's going to be dependent situation by situation. I want to get your thoughts on it. Just because they're expanding, Sacramento, Detroit, whoever, that doesn't necessarily mean they're expanding to make it to USL. So Sacramento's press release that came out of a Sacramento news outlet called The Bee mentioned MLS 10 times, including in the article headline. It mentioned that MLS never left the forefront of the Sacramento Republic decision maker's mind, right? It's always been there. Managing partner Kevin Nagel said that in his planning for the future, MLS is very much in the mix. If it expands to 32 teams, he wants to be one of them. MLS is I think his quote was MLS is the leader in US regardless of what USL does, right? That's the place we want to be. It also probably helps. Todd Donovan is, a former LA Galaxy player and also the GM of the Republic, right? Having that link is a good thing. Um, so just because we're talking about all these teams that are expanding and getting there, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all going to USL, because if MLS sees that and says, oh, you have the money, you want to actually take it a step even further because we're going to be better than USL D1, pay up and come on in, they're going to take that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a step closer to getting that. Yeah, I mean, I still think it's probably a ways away at this point, but we had talked about that closed system promotion relegation within Major League Soccer. Maybe, if they're thinking I don't have a shot to get in right now, or I don't have the money to pay to be an expansion side or like get involved in the league, maybe that's an option for us down the road. Like maybe it's a cheaper fee to get involved because you're starting at a lower level, but you still need to have certain requirements. And so maybe this is like a way to kind of play the long game because obviously, expanding a stadium doesn't just happen with a snap of a finger. Like it takes time, takes money. So like to get ahead of the game for that, maybe that's, if they're talking about Major League Soccer so much, maybe that's in the back of their minds. Or they just try to straight up go for getting expanded into like into the league now.
If I'm Don Garber and decision makers wherever, I'm giving them a cut rate, right? Oh, you want to build up to expansion? You can go to USL D1 and be a part of ProRel and risk that whole thing, or you can pay a little bit of extra money, right? Let's say USL D1's a 50 million investment, right? But you can go down and lose 10 times that, right? You go from 50 million
Everything.
to 5 million, yeah. Or pay 200 to get into MLS, be safe until we do some sort of closed thing where it's a little bit more balanced and you're not going to lose a huge drop or whatever. Find a way to uh, swing it and take some of those teams, because at the end of the day, and we mentioned this last week, owners care about money and money only. So if you can convince them that their investment is better done in MLS versus where USL is, that's a bit better. I don't know, how many are going to go there because I think Detroit had put it out in the open because it was on MLS's list of places they wanted to expand to, and they made it very clear that they were going to go to USL's D1. So, they're pretty much out of that conversation, and there are a whole bunch that are probably going to be out of that conversation, which is fine. But to wrap it all up, I think for USL fans in general, this is a good sign, right? They had years and years and years of teasing and no action, right? Oh, we're thinking about Pro Rel. We're talking about Pro Rel. We're going to think about a D1 league. We're talking about a D1 league. And now you're finally seeing people put the pedal to the metal and say, we're going to get this done, which is great. And it's also good in general for soccer, period, because as we mentioned, iron sharpens iron, right? So the quality will only improve with USL pushing higher. Up, well, MLS now needs to take a step forward, and then USL is going to take a step forward, and eventually, my guess is they're going to merge. We've talked about that already, but at the end of the day, if we can merge now and still have a bunch of things kind of in the grassroots stage, or we can wait 10 years when everybody's really settled, has good fan base and stuff, and merge together like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let us know what your thoughts are in the comments below on the potential USL D1 and things that are coming in that nature, because we are going to move on to our second segment here, which is about Evander. Because it was what we call a revenge game in Portland. Last week, Evander returned to the place he called home for at least 2 years for the last 2 years with his new club, FC Cincinnati, and Portland fans who were relatively hurt by his decision to leave. They decided to make their voices heard, chanting F Evander in his return. We all know what the F stands for, but safe to say they were not happy, right? Um, After the match, Evander was quoted saying he wasn't really expecting to be, cheered and revered for what he did, but he also thought that they were going a bit too much with the chants and the cussing and the slur, not slur, but the
I don't know
vulgarity.
what you're going for, so I can't
Vulgarity.
help
I
you.
was thinking about the word vulgarity. Because I had the word vulgar slur together. Somebody had posted that, but it's not, I don't think it's there. But anyways, the game ended not in the favor of Portland, where um, he ended up scoring a screamer and also having an assist in the game to win the game 3-2. People are noting that this was similar to the way that FC Cincinnati treated Luciano Acosta a few months ago upon his return, which we spoke about when it happened. Did Evander deserve this like Luciano Acosta deserved this? Your thoughts?
I think it's kind of obvious. Yeah, I do. I mean, if you look at I mean, you were the face of the team, right? A team that was not performing well, and you were the sole kind of star of the team, I guess you could say. I know there were other good players, but like Evander was the face of that team. Like you thought Portland, it was Evander. And then it wasn't like it was a clean breakup. It was messy and it was, forced out of Portland. Of course, they're not going to be like, "Oh, it's good to see you again. Like, we're so glad that you're back. Like, happy to see you. Like, whatever." And I'm all for. Hold on, actually, no, that's jumping to your next point, so I'm not gonna. But yes, I do think that I can understand the frustration from Portland fans, and I don't think. No, I keep wanting to go to the second point, so I'm
Go,
trying
go,
to control myself.
go. Let's mix it all into one. Go, 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 go.
Okay. I don't think it was too far. Like it wasn't something personal. They weren't like insulting his family or like getting into something that was like very personal to him. Like they just said F Evander. And I'm all for respecting athletes as human beings because I think a lot of people do not respect them as such and they don't care about their mental or like their emotions and they kind of just do whatever and treat them almost like they're robots just because they make a lot of money and you see them on TV and that kind of stuff. But I don't think this was too far. I think saying F Evander, if it went further than that and like maybe I just missed it, like I can like I'm open to hearing it and changing my opinion on that. But if it's just F Evander, I don't think it's too far. Plus, after you scored the goal, you ran to the fans and cupped your ear. What did you expect to happen? They were going to be like, ah, fair play. He's he's getting into it. He's a lot he's getting involved now. Like what a guy. Like of course they're gonna like that's gonna piss them off more. It's gonna rile them up more. Like what did you expect? So I don't know. I'm not a fan of. I mean, from what I've seen on like the facts and circumstances I've seen, I think it was understandable, and I don't think it went too far.
I disagree to a degree, not terribly far. Because I think there's nuance in this conversation, right? How they left, why they left, how they performed or acted after they left, right? I think they were similar exits. Luciano Acosta and Evander, they both tried to force their way out. They didn't want to be here anymore. Evander was saying that his contract promises weren't kept, so he had to leave. I think the profanity is a bit of a stretch, right? There are people who say, "Oh, we're a real footballing nation when we make, we do our best to break down the mental psyche of our opponent or whatever, nerds like that." But I think it's probably a stretch too far. I think you can boo him. I think you can give him shtick, but an entire, team giving him the F of Vander, I think is a bit over the line. But that being said, I don't disagree with the disappointment and the anger that they felt, right? They offered him a lucrative deal, one that would have made him what, top five best paid players in the league, I think we were talking about. He turned it down to force his way out of MLS because he said, you know, essentially what he told them is, yeah, you're not good enough for me. I want to go somewhere that's better, right? And then he ended up back in MLS. That, if it was something where it was like, oh, again, I'll use the Luciano Costa thing, right? Oh, PSG came knocking and we let you go. Great. Awesome. Right. The fact that you said, "Oh, I don't want to be here anymore. I need to go somewhere else." And you still ended up back, all your European or South American moves didn't work out. So instead of coming back to Portland, you then went to a different MLS team. Yeah, that's gonna hurt, right? And I think we talked about this during the Luciano Costa thing too, where that's a good sign, right? I think the fact that the fans felt hurt and they showed this disdain against this player exemplifies how the fan base is growing diehard, right? This isn't just a day at the park with the family just to waste a couple hours. I think that's great. I just think that maybe the idea of an entire group giving him these profanity laced chants is a bit far, period. Like I don't find myself doing that as a fan, as a supporter. Even if somebody came back, I'll personally give like a yell at him, like, oh, I think, what was it? There was a joke. Was it was it when Tim Ream came back and they were playing Charlotte? Think so. And he did something, and I made some sort of comment like, we made you, like, don't forget where you came from, something like that, out of a joke. But I don't think I ever would have gone to the point of vulgarity like that. But to each their own, right?
Yeah, I mean everybody kind of values vulgarity in a different way. Like I personally don't care much about it. I think the way that it was being used based on like the way that I see profanity, like I don't really think it was a big deal. I personally wouldn't be at the stadium chanting that, but I also don't think that because other people were chanting it, they were like going too far and it's like a personal attack on him and like, he's gonna be like thinking about this for a long period of time. Like it'll be something that's like traumatizing for him or anything like that. Like, he ended up getting the better of them at the end of the day anyway. So, to say that it like really affected him, I mean, I was perusing Portland subreddit to see what they were thinking about this, and some people were saying that it looked like the chants were getting to him a bit at first, and then after he scored the goal, they said that he kind of like settled in and was more focused on what was going on and less about the chants. So I don't think it affected him too much, even though he had comments to say about it. But you know, to each their own.
Yeah, like I said, it I don't know. For me, it's just not something that I would expect out of it. But I'm not gonna sit here and tell anybody how to be a supporter or a fan. I'll let the club handle that, right? If they want to say that that's not something they're gonna do, that's not something they're gonna do. But it makes you look silly when you do that, and then he drops two goal contributions and a 3-2 win, and now you're going home with your head between head or your tail between your legs, I guess, and uh, walking back saying, "Oh, this guy," right? But again, I think big picture, I think it's good that they're upset that he's gone, right? You should be. If he did come back, they gave him a standing ovation for what being a third place MVP runner up in a team that didn't make the playoffs twice, like, yeah, that would have been a problem. But yeah, that's where I'll leave it there.
Well, you know who should have been gone?
Nice. Tell me who.
Javier Mascherano should have been gone
Whoa, what for?
for getting a red card. Instead, he went to go take a front row seat to watch the game.
Well, technically, that's where he was told he had to go, according to him. Now, here's the problem is he said that's where he was supposed to go, but he also did basically admit to saying he bent the rules to the furthest extent that he could because he wanted to help his players. And we'll get into the whole thing here, but let's back it up a second because this is my favorite story of the week. You mentioned it as well. During Inter Miami's Leagues Cup quarterfinal victory over Tigres, Javier Mascherano was sent off just before halftime. I don't know what he said. I was coming back from a training session, so I didn't get to see the first, you know, 20 minutes of the game. But once we came back, I turned it on. He got sent off, and or rather, I should say the first half of the game. That's really what I should say. I didn't see that, but he got sent off. He comes back and he says, "I'm gone." And then by the start of the second half, like you mentioned, he is sitting in the front row of the right above the bench. Then a camera cuts to him and shows him on the phone talking to somebody very adamantly and pointing on the field. Then the camera cuts and you see his assistant coach standing on the sideline going, "What do you mean?" with his phone in his hand, pointing out like this. And he goes, for those of you who don't know, once you get a red card, there is no communication allowed to the field, whether you have cell phone, whether you can yell it out from the stands, right? I mean, you've seen the pictures of the guy who hired a scissor lift to stand above the wall to yell out on the field because he was technically out of the ground. I mean, you've seen all these things. They're so silly, but in MLS, you got to go somewhere else. Now, somebody let him go to the stands just above there. And essentially, he just started coaching from there, and nobody moved him, and nobody moved him on. In an interview after the fact posted by Franco Panizo, excuse me, he asked Mascherano, like, "Hey, if the coach of Tigres got sent off and was doing that, would you have a problem with it?" And he went on this whole thing. I mean, just this whole line of insanity of I am going to do everything I can to help my players, so I adapted the rules to meet my benefit. Hold on, I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find all the quotes here. Just a second. Give me one, just so I can get it spot on for everybody. So the quotes that he says. He asked Javier Mascherano if the other coach did that, would he view it as okay? He didn't answer it directly, which led to an exchange with the media. Franco acknowledges you didn't break a rule, but he thinks, do you think the rule should change the way the All-Star game suspension rule should change? Is how that was phrased. And then there was another exchange. He says, I can shout instructions to a substituted player from wherever I'm at, but the ones who indicated the instructions were other coaches, not me. Weird. If a fan is allowed to be in the middle of the stands using a flare to make smoke signals and a player can see you, why can't I? Okay. In the end, I'm in the same position as any spectator. Yeah, that's the problem. You're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be away from everybody else. That's what the red card is for. Whether it was good or bad, I adapted to the rules. I am going to do everything possible to help my players. If someone thinks that's wrong, that's fine by me. And then the kicker for me, and this is the one we're going to focus on the most, so many things are done wrong. Why can't I do something wrong every once in a while? So on that last one, did we just hear Mascherano basically admit that he knew he was breaking the rules and saying, "Oh, well, everybody else does it. Why can't I?"
Yeah, so much for bending the rules. You just admitted that you broke them.
I mean, just absolutely insane, right? Like, and I'm not even going to focus on like if he was sitting in the right area or not, because I assume that if he was in the wrong area, somebody would have come and said, "Hey, you gotta go," right? Nobody moved him, so that my guess is he was probably in the right spot. But to sit there and then openly say, yeah, I knew the rules, but I adapted them and I molded them into the way that it would help my players, that's cheating, right? And then to sit down and say, oh, and by the way, everybody else breaks the rules, so why can't I? Directly after the moment where we said, hey, remember when we told Messi to break all the rules because it doesn't apply to you? Because you're Messi? Time and time again, Inter Miami are making it known that they don't care about rules. They don't apply to them, and they're going to break them whenever and however they please. And it's just, I can't wrap my head around it because it feels like it's every week.
I mean, they have a history of it even before Messi joined. Five DPs? I know.
I
Yeah.
mean,
No, I get it.
it's like Jorge Mas is stepping in and saying, the rules are antiquated, and I'm going to change them by breaking them all until you change them for my favor. That's what it feels like.
Well, you know what? It's like, honestly, I don't blame him because keep breaking the rules if nobody's gonna do anything about it. Like, I would keep doing it too if I was him. I'm gonna do whatever I can to benefit my team. And if you're not gonna like slap the wrist on me on breaking any of these rules, then like who cares? Are you even breaking the rule then? If you're not getting any punishment? It's like, does this rule even exist then? I don't know. Other teams should just start doing it too. Whatever Miami starts doing, they should try to do the exact same thing. And I understand there's certain circumstances where you're just not going to be able to do some of the things that Miami could do, but it's like why listen to the rules if these like if this other team is not?
No, it's totally fair and a very good point, right? If you're going to sit here and tell me, oh well, Miami is going to be able to do everything, and we're just going to give them, a talking to, well, then everybody else is going to get to start to do that because all I can deal with a talking to. So my question to you then is, should MLS do something more about it, and what would be the appropriate punishment then? Because it is a Leagues Cup game, it's not a leagues game, right?
I mean, I guess it depends on if this was actually against the rules or not. I don't really know what the rules are for coach sending offs. Like if they have to physically leave the stadium or if they need to like be in the locker room or if where he was is fine. Um, Should it be against the rules? I absolutely think so because it literally defeats the entire purpose of the red card. Like there is no reason to send him off if he's just going to go 10 feet backwards and then have a phone call with the assistant referee who's right there. He could have just grabbed a megaphone and probably just had a conversation with him. Forget the phone call. If he loses signal, he'd probably just go borrow one. I think he needs to be like, if that's not the rule already, the rule needs to be that he needs to go to the locker room. Basically, he has to be somewhere where he can have no sight of the game. Like locker room, out of the stadium, I don't care. That's what happens when the players get sent off. If a player gets sent off, he's not just sitting on the bench, waiting with the rest of his guys. He goes to the locker room. He's sent out of here. Like it shouldn't just be like, oh, coach is sent off. He goes 10 feet backwards. Like it defeats the whole purpose. What's the point in giving red cards to the coaches then? I didn't. I realized I never answered your question on what the punishment should be. I mean, I think. Listen, if you're gonna suspend Messi for a All-Star game violation, I don't see why you wouldn't suspend Mascherano for a Leagues Cup violation. Like if it happens to be in the league, like I think it's fine. Like your league is involved in this tournament. So I don't necessarily see why it should have this like exception. Um I wonder what the rule is for. And maybe you know the answer to this. Like, what's the rule for a red card suspension in like the US Open Cup or maybe even like the FA Cup in the Premier League? Like, if you get sent off there, are you suspended for the Premier League? Are you suspended for Major League Soccer?
Oh, you are such a Euro snob. You had to bring the FA Cup in there, didn't you? Um,
Well, there's only one American tournament other than League's Cup, so I can only pull on US Open Cup. I said US Open Cup first too. All right, so
U.S. Open
put some
Cup,
respect
Leagues
on
Cup, Campeones Cup, playoffs, playoffs,
Campiones Cup. Don't even start with that.
Campeones Cup. How
Playoffs.
how
You
dare
talking about
how
playoffs?
so an interesting exchange here that I'll share. So Taylor Twellman, obviously one of the guys who broke the story or reacted to the story first, posted that the 2025 tournament regulations. And one of the lists is using unauthorized electronic communication equipment and or behaving in an inappropriate manner as a result of using electronic or communication equipment, 1 to 3 match suspension. Now, the problem is and credit to I'll give credit to all the people who put this out here because these aren't this isn't me doing the research. I'm just taking the comments here. Sam slash FIFA Brit on Twitter put out a response to that saying the rule says unauthorized electronic devices is not allowed. However, the League's Cup correspondent specifically said that cell phone communication are not prohibited. So clearly that cell phone communication is allowed. There was also a comment here from Mike, who is an Orlando City supporter. Mike A. Spillane is his handle. According to he quoted put a quote out there that said, according to both USA Today and ESPN, a Leagues Cup spokesperson indicated over the press box loudspeaker at Chase Stadium during the match that tournament regulations allow a coach to sit in the stands after being sent off. However, they do not allow them to communicate in any way with the bench or influence the match. However, the tournament changes its stance in the hours after the final whistle, where the Leagues Cup spokesperson informed Franco Painiso, excuse me, I keep messing that up, the guy who posted this whole interview, that the Inter Miami coach was located in a space designated in accordance with tournament regulations and cell phone communications are not prohibited. So this is where the whole story comes together, basically saying he didn't break any rules. However, the whole thing says that they're not allowed to communicate or influence the bench. Now, Javier Mascherano said that he was talking to a performance analyst up in the booth, but it was pretty clear he was clearly speaking down to the field. At the end of the day, regardless of where you have coaches sit or if cell phones are allowed or not allowed based on the rules then need to change because if you get sent off, you cannot impact the game anymore. That's the whole point of a red card, right? So if you get sent off from the bench as a player, if you get sent off from the field, you go to the locker room because you can't be used in the game anymore. If a coach gets sent off, he then cannot sit there and start, calling people and say, "Hey, do this, do that, do this, do that." That's not how this works. So you're very clearly in a position where you are putting influence on the game when you shouldn't be. And I know that this is getting blown up because it's Inter Miami, right? But if anybody else had done this, for a fact people will be looking into it and saying, probably shouldn't be doing that. Maybe we got to change something, right?
Yeah. No, it needs to. It's exactly as you said it. What's the point then? Like, if I'm a coach and I could just sit in the stands and like make a phone call, if I disagree with whatever calls the referee's making, there's no consequence to just berate them. Like, you could just absolutely get on their case all game long. And if you get sent off, who cares? Just go up in the stands, you take a nice comfy seat, you get your assistant manager's phone number, you give him a call, and you say, "All right, I'm talking you through the rest of this game, and we're gonna make sure we're doing fine." In which case, there's no penalty for breaking any like sort of rules to get sent off. Like, might as well, like, honestly, if your team's about to concede, if Mascherano might as well just run onto the field and then just two 2 foot whoever has the ball and just studs up, take him out, get the red card, and then you could just go up into the stands and then just coach the rest of the game from there and save your team from conceding a goal and from being down a player. So, I mean, what's to stop them from doing that at this point?
Yeah, I'm trying to just keep looking through here, and uh, my guess. So here's where I thought that Tigres would have protested the match immediately had he knowingly been doing something he wasn't supposed to, and they didn't, which clearly means that there is some sort of legal gray area where they probably could get away with it. But if we're looking at this, the image behind this is Inter Miami gets away with whatever they want. Anti-MLS and Euro snobs together will look at this and say, "Oh, look, MLS can't punish their star players because, they'd lose revenue and it's a Mickey Mouse league and blah 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 blah." So the optics in and of itself are worse than anything your league's cup rules allow or don't allow, right? I don't know if we need to step in and you can, if he's within the rules, they can't do anything about it. But the fact that they left them so absurdly vague to begin with is already a red flag to a tournament that already has so much scrutiny around it, right? It's a good tournament, but every year I feel like there's something more that's like, Are we really trying to figure out how to fix this too? Like, it's just silly.
I mean, maybe you could take that as like a like something good out of this is like, maybe they're pointing out and it's obviously they're not pointing it out with good intentions. They're pointing it out with bad intentions, but maybe they're pointing out flaws in the rules that need to be fixed. And I just hope that they're actually going to make changes to the rules and not just like be like, "Oh, this is like just be silent on it and just let it happen again."
I also
Or
wonder
like
why.
you know what it's gonna be. It's gonna be like the first time if the Portland Timbers try to do this, Phil Neville gets sent off. He's in the stands. They're gonna slap their wrist so hard. They're gonna be like Neville suspended 3 games, and we're changing the rules.
Yeah, I'm tired of having to go through this, but it feels I also wonder who wrote these rules. Like, is this taken from FIFA? Is this taken from IFAB? Like, who decided to sit down and say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have this will never happen, this loophole of having coaches sit two rows above where it is and go from there." And again, I don't want to be a Miami, defendant here, but credit to Javier Mascherano. If he knew the rules were incredibly vague like that, push him. Go ahead. I'm starting to change my opinion on this because the rules are so stupidly written that, go for it. Have fun. But I just think it's going to look, again, it's giving everything a bad look, as it always does. And you can go into the legalese of all the rules that they put out and figure out whether he's within it or without it, but we shouldn't have to get to this point. It should be very clear. If you get sent off, up to the very top of the stadium you go or into the dressing room. There's no sitting with fans in a designated, because that's the thing. The rules state that you go into the dressing room, up into a suite, or in a section of the stadium where with other fans designated by the organization committee. So who in the organization committee sat down and said, where's a really good spot to put sent off coaches? 2 rows above the bench. Who thought that was a good idea?
Yeah, seriously. Also, I keep reading over that line that you were talking about that Twelman tweeted about like
Uh,
unauthorized electronic and communication equipment. And I'm trying to figure out like what falls under that then. If it's not a cell phone, what are you saying like, "Oh, he can't page the assistant manager. Like he's just going to be sitting in the like in the stands sending him pager messages like being like or maybe he can't take out the typewriter to like send him a nice letter, type it up in the top of the stands and send him a paper airplane. Like what is unauthorized then? Like what other electronic and communication equipment is not allowed other than like a cell phone? What else
somebody
is
su-
there?
somebody suggested drones. So like
Okay, that
using
makes sense.
drone, yeah, so like using drones to see the game, like if you were sent off into the um, dressing room. So you're getting the drone footage and then calling somebody
Mhm.
up saying, "Oh, I'm only using my cell phone," but you got the drone footage right there. And another person said social media to make threats or like incite violence against the referees.
Okay, that's also fair.
Yeah. But regardless, right? Like it just feels like it shouldn't be this gray. Like there are always going to be areas of nuance in referee decisions, but this doesn't need to be. When you get sent off into the locker room, you go up into a suite. You go. No sitting 2 rows above the stadium. I'm not saying that he was in. Maybe he was in the wrong. Maybe he wasn't. I don't think he was. But we shouldn't have to argue about whether he was or wasn't because the organizers decided that was the right place to put him. All right. Well, let's round this up then. Make sure you share your thoughts, by the way, because this was a ton of fun to record and mess around with. But make sure you share your thoughts because I am now ready to ask Connor Wright the question of the week. We had 8 more responses to this one, another good response week. So make sure you're following us on YouTube to be a part of this every week. Today's question: there have been some very, very good first year players in MLS. Who to you is the leader for newcomer of the year right now? And I gave 4 options, and you can pick somebody who's not on the list. I gave Philip Zinkernagel from Chicago, Marco Pasalic from Orlando, Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting from New York Red Bull, or Andres Dreyer from San Diego. And you can pick a fifth one, but I'm going to give you a hint. It's not Emmanuel Latelat.
That's what you think. I can pick whoever I want.
Yeah, but you would be wrong.
All right, so I'll kind of think I'll walk you through my thought process here. So, Choupo-Moting's off immediately, right? Like I cannot give you that satisfaction even if he actually was deserving of it. Um, so he was the first name off my list. Then Zinkernagel has been very good this year. The only thing that keeps me from saying him over some of the other guys is the fact that Chicago itself has not been super great this year. They're ninth place right now, tied on points with Red Bull. Basically, I know they have a game in hand, but right now they're a goal ahead on the play-in game. So he has been doing well, but the team hasn't been doing well. So then that narrows it down to Pasalic and Dryer for me.
Mhm.
And while I think Pasalic has had a really good year, I think it's unquestionably Dryer. He has been unbelievably good. 13 goals, 15 assists for a team that has shockingly been top of the West. So I don't know what more the guy needs to do to be newcomer of the year. So that for me is the easy pick there. But at least I'll drag it out a little bit more by walking through the whole process.
The responses were close on this one. It was very interesting because I think a lot of people were just so this let me back you up. This started from me watching Chicago last week and Zinkernagel basically carrying them to a huge result that was terrible for Red Bull, which was hurtful, but he was so good. And I kind of put a tweet out there saying newcomer of the year has got to be between him and a couple other players. And somebody said, not newcomer of the year, he's the MVP. And I said, okay, it's a little stretch, but let's figure out who the newcomer of the year is. I'll tell you, we Marco Pasalic, 0 of the 8 votes, which I thought was interesting. Philip Zinkernagel had, I believe that's 1 vote. Yep, 1 vote. Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting had 2 of the votes, and Andres Dreyer got the rest of them at 5. So it was kind of a runaway. Um, that being said, I think it's really interesting the way that broke out because I too would have put Choupo-Moting at 4 on this list. Now it also just depends on who's voting and what our following group is, right? But I think Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting is probably the fourth on that list. I think he's had a great year, but in a similar vein that you were going with, Red Bull haven't done enough for me to be top of the top. He's also on pens, right? Philip Zinkernagel, I've got in the third spot. I think he's been really good, but again, hasn't done enough to bring Chicago all the way up to competing for the top 4 spots, right? Which is where I think the newcomer of the year gets a step forward, right? So now you look at Orlando or San Diego. If Andres Dreyer doesn't win MVP, newcomer of the year is a lock. If he does win MVP, newcomer of the year is also a lock. I think it's just where was that tweet? Yeah, there it is. Goals and assist leader through August 22nd. Andres Dreyer has 30 goals and assists. Lionel Messi has 29. That's crazy. These guys
In
are,
fairness, though, again, we gotta I mean, not listen. I'm not trying to run defense for Messi here, but
yes, you are.
take it with a grain of salt.
You
Messi has
simp.
played 1600. Messi has played 1600 minutes. Dreyer has played 2400. Like
I know.
they're
I know. And
close,
that's
but Messi has.
no, I get it. I know they're close, but that's why I think Messi's still going to win MVP. But I do think Dryer's got at the moment Dryer's got it on lock. Now, we'll see what else happens here, but yeah, I gotta give it to him.
Yeah, no, he's run away
Yep, yep.
unexpectedly too. Like not to say that he wasn't a quality player before he came here, but I don't think either of us really had him on our radar.
I had him as my player to watch this year. Just saying. Um,
Everybody was a player to
awesome.
watch. Every single person was new to San Diego.
That's right, baby. No, we that just means we had more to choose from. That just means we had more to choose from. Um, Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We hope you enjoyed that. It was really fun to chat MLS news today. Make sure you're following us wherever you get your podcasts. You know, the next one that goes live, we are wrapping up the transfer window and specifically deadline day. It got crazy on the last day of the transfer window. We're going to recap that on Wednesday. Make sure you're following us on social media, YouTube, so you can get involved with these questions of the weeks. Twitter, so you can involve with our comments and tweets and clips and stuff like that. TikTok and Instagram as well. But thanks so much again for watching and or listening, everybody. We will see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.